Hi, Dr. Maury, Uncivilized Vitality. This is the anatomy playlist. We're going to put this video there. If you're interested in how your body works for your own health and happiness support, you need to know the language, so anatomy. So you can watch this list. It's very interesting. If you happen to be in one of my anatomy courses, especially the cadaver dissection courses, then this video is somewhere you're going to want to start. This year, 2024, coming up, we're going to be using Grant's Dissector 17th edition. So make sure you get the new one. So a few changes in there. We're going to follow along with the new edition. So this video is going to be to talk about the things you'd need to do a more formal study of the anatomy of the human body. So let's talk first about anatomy. Comes from, you've got a couple roots there. You've got tome, which means to cut, and then ana, which means apart. So anatomy means to cut apart, right? So the study of anatomy. I'm a human anatomist. I study all the names and the relationship of all the parts, the structure of the human animal, and then the physiology, because usually goes together, anatomy and physiology, would be the study of how those parts function. So you can say structure and function. Most commonly, we're going to hear the term anatomy. Then there's another term, dissection, which essentially means the same thing. So we're going to separate into sections or pieces, right? So also means to cut into sections. So anatomy, dissection, a little redundant, but in the anatomy course, we're going to perform dissection and learn the names of the parts that way. So before we get in there and start the dissection, there's different ways we can cut into the body and define or showcase some of the structures. So let's talk about that. So first, let's talk about the tools you're going to use. I put a few out here. First thing's going to be safety, PPE, personal protective equipment. You're going to be required, if you were to take a course of mine at the local university, in the cadaver lab, you will be required to wear a 3/4 length lab coat. It has to go below the waist, not just a white jacket, and closed-toed shoes, preferably made of leather or nylon. So no, oh, that was an interesting experience there. 1 second. All right, fixed it. The light turned off for some reason. Maybe I did something wrong. Wow, that was noisy. Okay, so I did say I would try better on the lighting and the sound for these videos in the future. So anyway, back to it. Required to wear a lab coat and closed-toed shoes in my lab. You'll also be using gloves constantly. It's not strictly necessary. You can always wash your hands, but sometimes it's better and easier just to have the gloves on. We will provide nitrile gloves for latex sensitivities. But beyond that, and these are optional, is the use of goggles in the lab. So you can wear these just because sometimes proper dissection, let's just be real honest about it. Sometimes little pieces fly up a little bit. If you're getting a lot of splashback, maybe you're dissecting at too great a speed and you should slow the hell down. But don't worry, I'll be there to yell at you if you're doing that. Pair of goggles, protect things from splashing up in your eyes unless you wear eyeglasses, or when I dissect, I almost always have my reading glasses on so I can see up close. Sometimes you can go full safety and just put on your face shield. That way you can not worry about anything getting up on you. So gloves, coat, closed-toed shoes, and then goggles or face shield or eyeglasses. While that's the glass is not strictly necessary, also a good idea. Now the tools you're going to use. Most of your dissection, especially my lab, I would like done with blunt dissection. Blunt dissection means you're going to use mainly your fingers. Mainly your fingers and hands. You can also make good use of the blunt probe. And then, I don't know how to show these things up close. That doesn't matter, you'll see them in the book. The blunt probe, it's got a blunt end, it's slightly hooked, it's set so you can tear through connective tissue and tease things apart like veins and other nerves and neurovascular structures. And you can get in there and it'll help you pull them apart, tease them apart without ripping them. So blunt probe is going to be your main, next to your fingers, main dissecting tool. You're also going to be able to use these little wooden, they're just little sticks. You can use these for lots of things. You can get behind blood vessels and nerves to help them stand out from the region so you can see them, and they're super cheap. They're just not as strong as the steel blunt probe. Next, you're going to need a good set of forceps. You can use, I don't even hand out the regular forceps anymore. These are tweezers basically, but tweezers, and they've got a little tiny notch here and a hook here that bites together. That's called a, let's see if I can do it, like a rat tooth forcep. So they can grab onto slippery structures and give you a good purchase. And you're going to be using these a lot, especially when you do any sort of sharp dissection. Another tool that's going to come in very handy is a set of hemostat, long and short. And a hemostat is basically like a little delicate pair of pliers. They're like tweezers. And this one's got the little hooks on the end, and it's got a rough surface in there so it can grab hold of tissue. You can get hold of tissue and move it, especially because the tissue, the skin, the fascia, and fat are pretty slippery. You can use a pair of hemostats. Hemostat's going to go around your fourth finger and your thumb, and then you can use your index finger or whatever to get in their guide. It provides you a good grip. When we're skinning or removing skin, I'll show you a buttonhole technique. We'll cut a hole in the skin and use our pinky to hook that to get a lot of leverage. So you're not using just your forceps. And then I'll give you some small ones. When we practice sutures on some of the skin, we'll use these as needle drivers. They're handy for getting hold of slippery things, but they lock. See if you can hear that. All right, then they lock together and you can't pull them apart, so you can really clamp down. And then you're going to push them apart, and then they open back up. So hemostats and forceps will go together to help you hold tissue and remove tissue and get in there and tease tissue apart with your blunt dissection. Then we're going to get into sharp dissection. You will have a pair of small sharp scissors, right? These are pointed and sharp. You're able to get in there and nip little tiny structures, maybe cutaneous nerves or little arterial branches, just little things. Then you'll have a large set of blunt-nosed scissors. These would be cutting through heavier tissue like fascia and tendon and muscle. And then the other instrument that everyone seems to love, for whatever reason, in sharp dissection is going to be your scalpel. Right? Your scalpel is going to come with the scalpel handle. There's nothing dangerous about this at all. It's got a little grooved head on it where you will match up number 22 here, or 20, the scalpel blade. So you're going to open this little tin foil and it's going to go right down on that. It clicks into place, and then you can use the scalpel. Let's be real clear, and I'll say it so many times. The scalpel is only for skin dissection. The courses I teach, I prefer to use mainly blunt dissection because you don't cut through, transect, or destroy structures before we get a chance to see them. So mostly fingers, blunt probe, and your scissors. And one of the techniques you can use with your scissor is called the scissor technique. Let's say I've got a neurovascular structure and I want to separate some of the deeper veins from the arteries or the nerves, and they're all in a bundle. I'll put my scissors in, especially the small sharp ones, and then open them up. And I use them to prise apart some of the layers of tissue I want to see. So the scissors go in, and then I prise them open. And this is really handy for separating in sequential movements, separating fascial planes. Everybody wants to get in there with the scalpel and cut you. Don't be so quick with the scalpel. Your hemostats are also going to come in handy when you put your scalpel blades on the handles. So you're going to go over it. You will open up, right? You'll open up the scalpel package. Right. I'm going to take the blade out. If you've never handled a scalpel blade before, they are ridiculously sharp. The type of sharp cuts you and you won't know you've been cut sharp. So I will not try to put this onto the scalpel handle with my fingers. I will use my forceps or my hemostat, mostly hemostat, and then I will hold the blade, keeping my fingers well away from the edge, and then slide that handle down in there until it clicks. Let's see if we can hear that. There we go. Okay, and then I have my scalpel handle. Remove the blade the same way. I'll lift that little tab up. All right, and then grip the blade and slide that off. Well, that's new and it's stuck on there, so we'll come back to that demo later. And then all scalpel blades come off, go into the sharps container, and then you'll get a new blade. You will not need the scalpel as often as you think, right? Just to get through the skin. Anytime you're doing sharp dissection, you're using scissors or a scalpel, you will be using forceps or hemostats down in there next to the cutting instrument, not your fingers. Another piece of equipment that I'm going to hand out in the lab that come in very handy are tags, right? Just these little tags. So as you define or clean off a structure, you're going to attach your tag to it, maybe make a note to identify it. We use different systems because on the lab practicals, if you're in my class, you'll be coming along, picking up a tag, and it'll be attached to, say, a pectoral branch of a thoracoacromial trunk, right, up off the axillary artery, and I'll say, name this artery, or name this nerve, or describe two functions of this muscle, or what's the innervation of this structure that's tagged. Lots of things we can do with the tags. And as you're dissecting out the structures, if you attach tags as we go and use them for study aids, I think that'll be super handy. And as far as attaching them goes, tying a double overhand knot or maybe just a quick lark's head and then attaching them, square knots, surgeon knot, lots of ways to attach them to the structures without damaging the structures. And if you want to know knots, check out the knot playlist. All right, so then I'll probably talk to you about lots of different knots. So those are the tools you're going to use. And then besides dissecting, there's a few terms you want to know. First, I'll say things like blunt dissection, fingers, probes, scissor technique. Sharp dissection, that's going to be scalpels and scissors, always using the forceps, the hemostat, keep your fingers away. I'm going to say terms, we're going to say, I want you to clean and tag. Clean and tag structure X. Clean is just removing the fat and fascia and connective tissue from a structure. So if I say we're in the flexor compartment of the upper limb, I'll say clean and tag the biceps brachii. You will go from the proximal attachments to the distal attachments, sometimes called origin insertion. I don't care for that use of terms, but I'll say clean and tag this structure in your dissection outline. You'll clean all the fat and connective tissue so that you can see the muscular, the fascicles, the surface of the muscle, and then you will tie your tag on either the distal or proximal portions, and then write biceps brachii, muscle or tendon of, or something, whatever I ask you to label it as. So clean and tag, clean structures off, get the fat and connective tissue off of them. So there's another term that might be used interchangeably with clean and tag. I might say define such and such structure. Go in there, we're going to do the brachial plexus up in the axilla. I want you to define the individual nerves. So you'll go in there and clean off the nerves, stripping off the connective tissue and the fat or fascia around those structures, and define them. So very easy to visualize the borders or the limits of these structures. Now, a couple other terms you might come into that can be confusing will be retract and reflect. Okay, retract and reflect. Retract is going to be the temporary displacement of a structure. So the instructions you're reading in your lab may say use your hemostats to retract the pec minor so you can visualize some sort of structure, or the pec major to visualize the pec minor's structure. Retract means temporarily displace that structure so you can see under it. Reflect means you're going to fold that structure out of the way along its cut line, cut edge, through its transection. So if I say reflect the pec major medially, I'm going to have you make a transection somewhere in the muscle, and then you're going to reflect it by folding it in a medial direction. Or I might say remove, which is another R, which is going to be cutting the entire structure off the body. We may say remove the left trapezius muscle. You're going to take it completely off the body. And then another one you might hear, it's kind of along the lines of remove, is strip. So this is going to refer to structures we're going to remove completely from the body. Remove and strip are the same thing. Strip's more of a, refers to long, thin structures like veins and arteries and nerves. So typically in the gross cadaver lab, we're going to strip most of the venous structures, some lymphatics, because we need to move them to visualize things, and I'll explain about that in class. So there are the basics of human dissection or anatomy, the dissection to learn anatomy. You're going to need a few simple tools, some sharp and blunt tools. Tags are handy. Some PPE gloves, maybe some goggles or a face shield if you're not wearing eyeglasses. And you obviously have to have a lab coat and closed-toed shoes to be in one of my courses. Then there's pans, specimen trays, and buckets and such. But I want to emphasize once again in my class that we're going to use the scalpel for sharp dissection for the skin. Once the skin's removed, we're going to put this away, except very few circumstances. It's very tempting to get in there and cut through things, but you're going to cut through tissue and structures that you're going to need later. And then terms like reflect, retract, remove, strip, clean, define, these are all very specific terms, and you're going to need to read through your dissecting guide and be prepared for that in the lab, because I will use these terms when I'm giving the instructions, and we will go from there. Feel free to check out the rest of the anatomy list playlist. I'm still working through one of the anatomy texts that I use. Not Grant's, not Moore's. Susan B. Advanced Human Anatomy. I'm working my way through that text, and I'm doing videos kind of along the table of contents line to get a list of videos that line up with at least one of the books so that people can follow along. If you want to know more about the anatomy or specific things, I try not to give specific health and wellness advice on the YouTube channel just because of liability issues. But if you want to learn more about anatomy, check out the playlist. Give me a thumbs up or a comment about things you'd like to see, and we'll go from there. Subscribe, share the channel. Thank you very much.